Jarvis, drop my needle.
Hello, this is the hardcore legend Mick Foley, and if you are interested in listening to idiots, you came to the right place. Have a nice day.
Woo! That's an attention getter.
He's a very strange young man.
He's an idiot.
What we're dealing with here is a complete lack of respect for the law.
Oh my God, he's an idiot.
You know, of course, that you're out of your jurisdiction.
Personally, I think you're an idiot.
But that's the evidence in the car.
I was going into Toshi Station to pick up some power converters.
Always like to keep my audience riveted.
Greetings, ladies and gentlemen, friends and fiends, and welcome to Free Range Idiocy, the podcast about everything, but mostly just the stuff we like. In 1984, the Ghostbusters arrived to save the world, with a script by Dan Aykroyd and Harold Ramis, directed by Ivan Reitman, featuring Bill Murray at his comedic apex and Sigourney Weaver at her most Weaverist. An incredible supporting cast, it became a gold standard for comedy while also functioning as a great paranormal horror movie. 37 years later, they're back, and so are we. Tonight, we'll go through all of our thoughts, all the feels, and all the marshmallow fluff in this episode 83 for Harold. Ghostbusters Afterlife reactions. My name is Todd, and with me, as always, is the man who once won an eggnog chugging contest against an assortment of Hell's Angels, mall Santas, and dairy farmers by downing 8 gallons of the good stuff and raising his cholesterol by 800 points. He is a deacon in the Church of Idiocy and my partner in idiocy for over 2 decades and counting. I give you the man they call Tim.
Greetings and salutations, my friend. How are you?
I'm doing all right. How about yourself?
Very good. Unless we not forget the Cheez-Its that also accompanied the eggnog, my friend.
Well, I didn't want to get into braggadocio. I figured that, you didn't want to... And I was trying to make you sound reasonably healthy. I was trying to do you a solid.
Yes, 800 calories worth of eggnog is, or 800 points of cholesterol due to the eggnog is quite healthy.
Yeah, 800 calories of eggnog is approximately half a cup.
I was going to say that just won't do.
It's essentially for people who are like, that buttermilk is too healthy. What else you got?
I need another layer of fat on top of that. Would you give it to me?
Here, have this eggnog with a butter swizzle. Okay, perfect.
Gosh. Good
Sounds
Lord.
Terrific.
It does.
Whoever thought of eggnog? I mean, I love it. I absolutely love eggnog. Don't get me wrong. I am pro eggnog. Mm-hmm. But who thought of this? Like, here's something that is it's like 30 weight oil. It has a viscosity rating way higher than any other dairy product. Oh my gosh, it's kind of questionable whether it's a liquid or a solid at sometimes as I'm drinking it.
And yet it's that's the beauty of it. I mean, you take a sip of it and it's just like, man, this is just, thick, like you said, viscous drink. You know what I mean?
Yeah, so. It's like Wookiee snot essentially.
Oh, good Lord.
Here, let me drink this.
All right. For the listeners, Uncle Todd is on
we don't need to get into that. Okay. We do not need to get into what happens in the pre-production meeting stays in the pre-production meeting, okay?
All right. Patrick knows what I'm talking about.
Yeah, no, he doesn't, because he's actually so Patrick, which I just want to give everyone an update here. Free Range Idiocy HQ, once again, the heat be dropping because the sun has gone down. Recording this, it's like 8:52 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, which means the sun's been down for about 10 hours now, and so the temperature is steadily dropping here. And I finally was like, I got one of those battery powered lights that you can put on a hat, so it's like a little miner's hat sort of thing. Mm-hmm. I gave him that, the wrenches and the broken socket set I have, and told him good luck, sent him out to work on it. Mm-hmm. I haven't heard from him in about 3 hours.
All right.
Oh, it's been lovely. It has been absolutely lovely in here.
Wonderful.
The thing is, I mean, we don't have heat, but at the same time, I haven't heard it kick on, which means Patrick probably still has all his fingers. So I think it's kind of a net win, really.
You sure he hasn't run across the street to the Mickey D's, walking through the drive-through line again?
No, he doesn't. He hasn't gone back to that place since he got smacked last week. He has not gotten back there since that lady at the counter smacked the taste right out of his mouth. He has not been back. I can't blame him. I told him not to go over there. Yeah. I told him not to go over there, and that they would not put up with his shenanigans the same as I would. Mm-hmm. He didn't listen.
Oh, dear.
But anyways, before we dive into the meat of our meal, you know what? We're going to go after the sides first. So we are going to dig into what is essentially the mashed potatoes and green beans of Free Range Idiocy. We're going to talk The Week in Geek.
The Week in Geek.
Feels so funky.
All right. Well, my friend, we started off as we have started the last 11 weeks off with a update on the 2021 fantasy football campaign.
Or as our listeners are calling it, their long national nightmare. They're wondering when this section is going to be done. Like, dear God, I don't even care about football itself, let alone your fake freaking football teams.
But yet, we must delve in and see how we're doing.
Yes.
So, last week we both had a victory. This week, it looks like we're on opposite ends of the spectrum. My team, Quick Slants, is well-positioned for a victory, unless Russell Wilson loses his mind. And this is the interesting storyline of the evening. They All Hate You is currently in a losing predicament, but Uncle Todd, much like the man they called him a couple weeks ago, is really hanging his hat on an 80-point performance from Russell Wilson tonight. You know, it is against the Washington football team, which is not known for its defense. So he very well could be playing with magic here. And sadly, if that goes his way, it also means I'm probably in a lot of trouble too, as my 20-point lead right now dissolves if this happens. So that is kind of the state of where we're at. How are you feeling, sir, this potentially being your first loss in a number of weeks?
Well, I mean, at the end of the day, it is fake football, and I know that when it comes to this, the football gods hate me because I should not have ever come back and done another season of fantasy football. So I'm braced for the worst. However, weird stuff happens, man. I mean, we are into the top of the second quarter here as we are recording, and Seattle has themselves a 7-3 lead right now, and I got 9 fantasy points, which means right now that according to Yahoo, I have a 3% chance of winning, but you're saying there's a chance. So I'm going to cling to that. I'm going to cling to that like Leonardo DiCaprio was clinging to that piece of wood at the end of Titanic.
Hope springs eternal.
Yep, and right around the time we finish this show, then it should be about the time when I'm completely just dead and gone, and Tim's going to pry my lifeless corpse off of the board, which was really kind of a smack in the face if you really think about that in that movie. Like, she didn't need to like the thing was, if anything, he was probably creating more buoyancy for that little piece of wood that she was on. And no, she's like, I'll never let you go. Snapping the fingers off, like, and just watching him drift down to the depths. Never let you go. Well, except now. And there you go. But that's going to be me at the end of this. I'm just going to be, oh, wait a minute. Update. Russell Wilson's now got 12 points. So
wow, live update. Jeez, look at that.
In progress, ladies and gentlemen. It's 212 to 144. I'm coming back, baby. I'm coming back.
I'm looking at my matchup and literally just saw a 1 percentage point increase on my side for a chance to win, and of course a loss of a percentage on the other side from my opponent. So 85% chance of winning, 15% chance of him making a comeback. Again, all hinging on the Russell Wilson coming through with a magical performance tonight.
Yes, it always feels great to be banking on a guy who Russell, fingers aren't supposed to bend that way. Wilson is where you're hoping on his passing arm. Like, yes. Oh, that's a great feeling right there. The only better feeling was at least I dodged the Ryan Tannehill roller coaster. Yes. That was my other option at quarterback. It was like, it was a no-win situation. It was the Kobayashi Maru of fantasy football quarterbacks for me this week.
You, Captain Kirk, navigating the choppy waters, if you will.
How do I go in and hack this sumbitch is what I want to know. It's my only chance. It's my only chance. But anyway, They All Hate You, probably more than likely sinking back to 500, which at this point, still kind of a victory for me, really.
Mm-hmm.
I mean,
sir.
you know, there's still time for me to make a race for the bottom.
I think you will still be in fourth place because the team just below you in fifth place is losing and will lose this week, it looks like. So I believe you will maintain buoyancy, if you will.
I don't think so. I think I'm still getting pried off of the raft and sinking down into the Marianas Trench. I really feel that's the best metaphor for me right now.
I did notice in the playoff brackets, because they have now started to slot the teams because we are coming upon our final couple of weeks of the regular season for the fantasy league, and it looks like while I have a first round bye, assuming I remain in first for the remainder of the season, and Uncle Todd stays in fourth, we will be in the same overall bracket, meaning we will have Idiot Bowl 3 contested as the semifinal contest, assuming he is able to post a victory. So really crossing my fingers for that.
You know what they say about assume. Just going to leave it right there. Just going to leave it right there.
They say assume? Is that what you're saying?
Yes. Yeah, add the accent on there. Sounds so much better. Sounds so much better than just the reality that it is.
Indeed. All right. Well, enough talk of the football campaign for this year, and let's move on to a little ditty that premiered last week during all the holiday kerfuffling that was going on. Hawkeye, first 2 episodes.
Were you kerfuffling? I didn't know that was legal where you are.
I was. I mean, I was having to, cook and manhandle a bacon wrapped turkey breast. So
but do you have to go to do you have to go to a kerfuffle like speakeasy? Is it underground kerfuffling?
Not
unlicensed kerfuffling, if you will.
Anyways.
This is the episode when Tim finally decides I can't take it with his chucklehead anymore. Tim's gonna have his own podcast by this Friday.
I got talking points, man. Come on now. Got to stick with the script.
All right. Go ahead.
Well, no.
Do as you will.
I was going to ask you, what did you think about Hawkeye?
Okay. I wasn't quite sure what to expect. I'm very disappointed that we did not get an undercover musical. That was one of my little things. However, I am very pleased with how the show is. We kind of
got one though, didn't we?
Oh my gosh, and like the worst musical ever. Oh my goodness.
No, sorry. We got the musical, but then in the second episode, we got the outdoor, like I think you were thinking the outdoor stuff we saw was going to be like a musical, and it turned out to be like one level better than a musical, being the role playing
the LARPing.
That was
Oh geez. Yeah.
But let's talk about the musical, sorry.
I did like how he's like, can you return this? Oh yeah, they will charge a credit card. I really enjoy how there's just little bits of business and how much of the straight man Hawkeye is. Like Jeremy Renner plays that so beautifully. And that's why I always dug the ScarJo Jerem, I don't know, Remmer.
You're going to pull a muscle trying to make that one happen.
I know that's
Lord.
There's some contortion. I didn't stretch nearly enough to be able to do contort to get that one.
It's funny.
But I always enjoyed their dynamic because they really were always the straight men, straight, whatever. They were the ones who weren't wise Alex. They weren't joking around and all of that. And the only time you could ever kind of see a little bit of sarcasm or that kind of playfulness was the two of them together, And so seeing him in this, I just really enjoy the dynamic there. And the Kate Bishop character is kind of growing on me. The first episode, I was like, I don't know if I really want to watch a whole show about her. There was something about the character that was getting on my nerves, and I can't even explain what it is. However, by the end of the second episode, I was like, all right, Kate Bishop.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. Something about the character in the first episode that was it was bugging me. And like I said, I can't even put words to what it is. So I know it's probably just me. And so, don't feel you have to send all the hate mail. But if you do, send it to Tim at freerangeidiocy.com. And Tim can enjoy all of those. But by the end of the second episode, I was really enjoying the dynamic, and I'm enjoying kind of the level of humor and also the action that's happening. I think to me, it's a good show so far. I'm excited to see where they go from here and how it kind of expands out of this. How about you, sir?
Yeah, no, I agree with your thoughts. Had similar ones of my own. What I found interesting, and I am wondering if this is going to end up kind of being the heart and soul of the series, is very early on when they are watching the musical, and you see it kind of focus in on whoever is playing Black Widow.
Yeah.
And you just see his face, and there has been some rumorage out there that we may see Flo pop up. Now that ScarJo is because if you remember at the end of Black Widow,
right. Yes,
there was the revelation to her about who supposedly killed her sister. And so I'm wondering if there's going to be like a reckoning that will kind of be the dramatic fulcrum, if you will, of this series. Because that seems to be something that is weighing heavily on him, as we saw in that episode. And as he exited, it wasn't because he was you certainly could make and I was kind of trying to see if it was Chris Evans playing Captain America, because my gosh, the guy looks really, really close to like Chris Evans.
Yeah.
But he gets up to take a breath, and so there's definitely some unresolved feelings there that I'm wondering if he will end up processing that through this journey he's about to go through, this John McClane-esque journey he's about to go on.
Yeah, I think it is interesting that we will get to see a bit of that, of a little bit of maybe the PTSD aspect of this. Like we saw it a little bit with Thor in Endgame, and you saw a little bit of it with Hawkeye as well, just in terms of how he became Ronin and just said, you know what, I'm just going to go kill a bunch of guys. That's how I'm going to process my grief at losing my family. Everybody has it. I mean, everyone has a way to process grief. Some people, eat, some people work out, some people bury themselves in work. Some people just decide, you know what, I'm going to go kill everybody in the criminal underworld. Oh, you mean everyone from one crime family? No, everyone in the criminal underworld, everywhere in the entire world. And then I'm going to get a spaceship and I'm going to go kill everyone in the criminal underworld on every planet. Okay, then. Good luck. But yeah, we're kind of, he has a hard time dealing with the fact that people talk about, oh, well, you saved our city. And this is a guy who is not necessarily comfortable being a superhero or being a hero, period. Like, this is the guy who's always wants to be off in the distance and kind of see things from a distance and all that. So yeah, I agree. It's an interesting angle to take with him, and to kind of see a bit of a more human side to superheroes.
Yeah. I did like, and I don't know why this stood out in my mind, but I thought it was kind of an interesting exchange with his wife when he's chatting with her and the kids are home, and he's talking about missing doing the gingerbread houses, and she asks him like what he's about to do, and there's kind of like this shorthand talk that they have where she kind of understands what he's going to be doing, and he's like, yeah, I'm gonna go do a little catch and release, and she's like, oh yeah, that's something like Nat would do, like just kind of that familiarity and just that bond that they have. And I don't know, it was kind of I thought it was a nice detail that they added in, where even though he is this guy who putting his life on the line almost on a regular basis, his wife seems to be remarkably calm about the whole thing. So I thought that was kind of interesting.
Yeah, because it seems like he actually has found this balance and this way of communicating and in this openness with his wife. Like, you can tell in their relationship in was it Infinity War? No, it was it Endgame? I can't remember, where they went to Hawkeye's house and the movie kind of just like kind of paused a little bit.
Oh, that was in Age of
Infinity
Ultron.
War.
Age of Ultron.
That's right. Okay, duh. Pick an Avengers movie. But just this idea of like he seems like he is the family guy, and that he is very much in love with his wife and loves his family and loves all of that. But he also has this other thing that's like, well, I just do this thing. And yeah, it would make sense that they would have that shorthand, because it doesn't seem like he keeps anything from her, as opposed to almost every other Avenger who has some type of level of secrecy with people that they're close to.
Agreed. So yeah, overall, I thought it was a great, start to the series. I'm curious where they're going to go with it, and kind of what a lot, similar to Falcon and the Winter Soldier. I mean, I'm curious how they're going to kind of weave a villain in that's going to be worthy of the hero, and what are the larger implications of all of this, which is typically the question you ask yourself when you enter into any sort of Marvel property. So it'll be very I'm excited to see where they go.
Yes.
All right. So now with Hawkeye behind us, now we get to the part where, well, the man they call Tim, he's got a little chip on his shoulder.
Oh boy, folks!
Little chip.
Just gonna say right now, you might want to have a seat if you're not already sitting down.
Pour yourself a double, if you will.
Yeah, maybe make that a triple.
But basically, a couple of weeks back, we saw in the wrestling news, WWE released 7 of their main roster acts in what is apparently becoming a common pattern for them of letting talent go as opposed to retaining them. These talent were actually what made this kind of odd was the fact that the talent was very much on TV, involved in storylines. It was very, very odd, and this has been, I don't want to call it a pattern, although I guess we could in a way, because it's happened a couple times.
It's totally a pattern. There's enough data points now. I think you can call this a pattern.
Yeah, so acts like Hit Row, which and had 4 members. One of the members was let go in the last cuts, and then, which is about a month and a half ago. The remaining 3 members got cut, and this was all on the 18th of November, going back a couple weeks. They were let go. John Morrison was let go. Tegan Knox, Drake Maverick, and a few others. And the typical company line for this is that budget cuts are the reason why they're doing this, even though over the last 2 years, they've been posting record revenue and profits. So it's a little curious what exactly the budget is, because they seem to be making money hand over fist at the moment.
You know what the budget is? Whatever Vince wants it to be. I'm saying that to be clever, but it's also, that's just the way it is too.
It is. And what is kind of gnawing at me about this, and I've shared this with Uncle Todd, is so over the last couple of months, I mean, I have been from, I'm trying to think back, like probably 83, 84 is when I got into wrestling, and it was the Roddy Piper, bashing Snuka over the head with the coconut promo that I was like, oh, this is interesting. I got to watch this. And then I've been like sold ever since. I have been a through and through WWE supporter and fan, have watched the product, have supported the product. I am actually getting to the point where it's going to be very hard for me to watch the product moving forward, because I honestly don't understand what direction they're going in at this point. When you look at their roster and you look at what they have still retained for talent, a lot of them are mid 30s to late 30s, early 40s, established names, and a lot of the younger guys are just not, and gals are just not getting really the appropriate time to establish themselves and make themselves into something. They're really just trying to rush success, and really with this, I mean, this group Hit Row was gaining a lot of momentum. They were from what I understand, really hitting it with the audience well, and they were embroiled in kind of a storyline with Sami Zayn, and it just all of a sudden stopped. They got let go and it was done. That was it. So to me as a fan, it's hard to invest in any kind of storylines at this point, because I don't know if what I'm watching is going to actually end up being the thing I see in pay-per-view at some point. I mean, they could just jettison a few other people and that's that with the product. It does also seem to like management is dismantling a lot of what Paul Levesque, Triple H, has built up over the course of the 2010s in NXT. That whole system has been rebooted, and so now we have NXT 2.0, and it's kind of doing its own thing. And I don't have a lot of confidence that they're going to build talent the right way. I think NXT was for a long time very much what AEW is, which is what I have been gravitating towards watching, and really emphasizing the professional wrestling aspect of shockingly professional wrestling.
The hell you say?
I know. How dare they? Wrestle? No. We need to see you tap dance. It's just a bad situation overall. And it kind of goes back to something you and I talked about a few episodes back when Mick Foley tweeted out, at this point, how can you as a talent trust them with your future? It's got to be very difficult being kind of a young up and coming talent at this point, because Ring of Honor, which was another independent league that existed in the U.S., they recently, at the end of this year, will suspend their operations. So they were also kind of a incubator of sorts for talent who would establish themselves and then kind of move up to the next level. They're gone. They're going to be done. So really, it's just going to be AEW and WWE. And so as a young talent, it's like, do you go to WWE to try to make a name for yourself, but not know exactly how it's going to go? Or do you try to go to AEW, who at this point has got to be kind of pretty well flush with talent? And, there's only so many more they're going to be able to take. You know what I mean? Like, they can't just keep taking in all the talent Vince is cutting, because that's just not it's just not sustainable and scalable in the long term. So, so I really feel for the folks who are trying to build a career and build a brand around themselves, because it's hard to do that when the winds shift at a 90-degree angle almost instantaneously on them. And so, it's one of those things where I never thought I'd come to the point where I would not support or want to watch WWE, but at this point, it's just, I have very little motivation to do so. Mm-hmm. And I want to get your thoughts on this as well, because I feel like, I chat with Uncle Todd a little bit about this, and I talk his ear off about AEW, but man, they are putting together just a great product right now with the talent they have. Really feels like a strong wrestling company, really compelling storylines. You get it emotionally involved in matches. Even the younger guys and some of the undercard talent, are all very watchable matches, and they just do a great job telling a athletic, competitive match sort of story with these matches. And what I find so interesting is at the end of these matches, both guys or both gals come out stronger. Like yes, the loser takes a loss and they're a loser, but they end up coming out stronger, and you come back and want to see them, come in for another match and try to turn it around. And so I just really feel like AEW is just doing an amazing job, kind of carrying the torch of professional wrestling, while WWE is just more and more slipping to the side of just becoming a content creation company. So I will pass the baton over to Uncle Todd, though, to get his thoughts.
Well, I think you nailed it. They are in the business of content creation. And this is something we talked about before, where I saw it on a video from Cultaholic Wrestling, where essentially this is what Vince has always wanted. He doesn't want to have to rely on paying certain guys or gals. He doesn't want to have to coddle to certain names. He wants WWE, the initials, the company, the brand, to be the draw. And then whatever is there, people are going to watch, because they are just WWE watchers. And with their deals that they have right now, especially where they have security in terms of, their deal with Fox, their deal with USA, their deal with Peacock, I don't know how long those deals run, but I do know they're for a buttload of money for each of them. Mm-hmm. And if you've got that sort of money, and I mean, granted, maybe you're not drawing the ratings you were, but you do have a certain amount of security, and hey, I got a contract for this amount of time, and we'll figure that out down the road. And yeah, we'll take a dip now to come out ahead in the end. Whatever the thinking there is, at the end of the day, though, it's Vince's way or the highway. And it always has been. And it's been a slightly saner way, and it's also been crazier ways. And Vince does what Vince wants to do. And nobody else can have the ideas unless it comes through Vince, or Vince thinks that it's his idea. Mm-hmm. And we've seen that with the way that he's treated talent. We've seen that in stories from Mick Foley, from different people. Like, it's got to be Vince's idea.
Right. Right.
And even at the times when the beginning of the Attitude Era, where he kind of let people do what they want to, part of that was just the fact that he was at a total loss, and it kind of at the bottom of the hill. Yeah. Like, he had just gone through all of this stuff, and his company's on the skids. He's getting his tail kicked in by WCW. I look at that as he didn't really have many other choices. Mm-hmm. And that's where that came from. Yeah. And then you look at everything that's gone since then. And now I think as an older man, he's less inclined to change his attitudes and his ways. And in fact, he's probably going to lean more into them. Yeah. So yeah, it's totally one of those things that it's not unexpected at all to see this. Yeah. And I mean, wrestlers have always been cut. There's always been a coming and going sort of deal with wrestling, especially back in the day when a lot of stuff was done on a handshake and all that. But right now, these cuts are just coming so fast and furious. You have guys like Uncle Corny, Jim Cornette, as well versed of a wrestling historian as you can possibly find, and he is even flummoxed at this point as to what the hell is going on. Yeah. So if Corny can't figure it out, I sure as shooting can't. All I can do is take a guess. But I mean, as far as like, where would a wrestler go, a young wrestler coming up? Mm-hmm. On one hand, you can look at this and say, well, at the very least, now there's two companies. Like, yeah, Ring of Honor goes away, okay, but they're a minor league thing. They're a minor league promotion. They were never going to compete. They were never setting out to compete with WWE.
Right.
So they're gone. Okay, well, you know what? There's always other promotions. There's always someone starting up these small promotions and working their way up and getting attention. At least now you have two big companies. You have a choice. For the longest time now, it's just been WWE.
Yeah.
And you can go to TNA or Impact or whatever the crap it's called at that point, but it's like, meh, just kind of like a AAA version.
Yeah. Well, that's a good point. I didn't think to mention Impact Wrestling. So I mean, that's that. So there were 4, now there's 3. Right.
Yeah, but at the same time, like that third one is, it's not even like, I mean, it's sort of like ECW-ish. Like it's not really direct competition for either of them. The thing is, if you're a young upcoming wrestler, you now have 2 choices. And the fact is, you're going to go wherever someone's going to pay you. Unless you have a rocket strapped to your butt in terms of internet buzz, and someone is willing to really lay out a guaranteed contract or something exorbitant, you're going to go wherever you can get a gig. Like that's just the way it is. That's the way it is in any kind of talent field. If you're a musician, you take the gigs. You're just starting out. It doesn't matter if you're playing at a buffet at a freaking Ramada Inn. You're taking the gig because you just need gigs, and they'll pay you. So that much really isn't going to change, except that now you at least have 2 options. You have better odds. But as far as like if you actually have a choice, if both offers are equal, hell no, you're not going to go to WWE. No way. Not unless you were to get like something that no one has ever, that I know of, gotten, which is creative control over their character. And I think different people have had different levels of that, but it's only because Vince has granted them that. It's never been like in your contract.
Yeah.
That I know of. Granted, I'm not the wrestling historian of the world. So, I mean, yeah, but at the same time, I can't be that excited about AEW because it's almost that sort of thing like, well, they're better than them. Well, crap. That's not a very high bar. It's like someone saying like, I can play basketball better than you. Dude, I'm 5'8" with like bad ankles.
Well, this is where this is where I have to disagree because I know you haven't been,
Well, no, and I'm not saying that. I'm not saying that to take a shot at AEW or to try and tear them down. I'm just saying that it's a very low bar for them to get over. And
gotcha.
From the sound of it, they are doing wonders.
Yes.
But a lot of it is by comparison. Like compared to WWE, they're amazing.
Yeah.
Now, I don't know enough to say if they're all-time great and all this, but I mean, they're doing more right things than WWE is for sure, which they ought to be applauded for. Certainly. Most definitely. And it's a type of thing where right now I'm canceling my Peacock subscription because I no longer have any interest in watching WWE because I kind of saw some highlights or lowlights of Survivor Series. I'm like, ugh. Yeah, I'm good.
Which is incredible.
Here's $10 a month I can save.
Right. Which is incredible when you think about the fact that we reviewed it on this show last year and the year before. And I think it was 2 years ago was when they did NXT versus Raw versus SmackDown. And there were just some amazing matches with NXT talent.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
And none of
now,
it.
No, yeah. No, it's sad, but at the same time, it's not that unexpected.
And one other little data point, if I could throw out, and this is a rumor, not confirmed, but one of the comments made about some of the talent that's been released is, well, gee, they just got called up from NXT to the main roster, and they really haven't had a lot of time to kind of establish themselves, so it seems premature to cut them. Well, one of the rumors is that NXT talent, they have a 30-day no compete clause. So some of the talent that gets called up to the main roster, when you come up to the main roster, you fall then into the 90-day. And so the thought is, are they calling up talent, giving them kind of an opportunity to see if they can make a big splash and make an impact quickly? And if not, you cut them and they have to wait 90 days before they can find any gainful employment. So
which sounds like a terribly short-sighted strategy, but then again, so does like completely undercutting your farm system and any young talent that might eventually break through.
Right.
And they've been doing that. And the other thing is, to also your point and to kind of quote Uncle Corny, you said that AEW can't sign them all. Well, there's no evidence to the contrary. Mm-hmm. So according to Uncle Corny, like he keeps writing checks and they keep clearing. So who knows?
Yeah. So far, the big standout that hasn't signed is Bray Wyatt. So he is free and clear to sign, and he has not. So
which
he's
is
at least
a little
one talent
odd.
they haven't. But
But then again, I mean, I don't know. Bray Wyatt seems like to me like he might be the one guy who was smart enough with his money, and he's just saying, you know what, I'm going to take a year off.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to take a year off. I'm going to get any kind of nagging physical injuries that I've had. I'm going to get them taken care of. I am just going to sit and think of ideas.
Mm-hmm.
And that way, when I decide, and maybe he's even thinking like maybe WWE will come to their senses, or maybe WWE will get sold, or maybe Vince will get, frozen in a cryogenic chamber, and Triple H will finally ascend to the throne. Maybe this is when they put Vince away for like 20 years so that they can bring back his frozen head in a jar. Maybe this is finally when the process starts. But maybe he's thinking like, I'm just going to sit out for a while, come up with some ideas, and then, hey, yeah, eventually I'll sign with AEW if they've got the money, or maybe I'll go back to WWE if things change. But this is the best thing possible for me. I'm going to heal. I'm going to come up back with 1,000 ideas and probably still make a butt ton of money.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Either that, or maybe he's just like, you know what? I hate all things wrestling now. You've killed it all for me.
I'm going home.
Exactly. The Cartman approach, which, you know what, is totally valid. I'll say that. Well, thank you for giving us your vent on wrestling,
and
sir. Appreciate it.
Yes, with that therapeutic venting session, that, my friends, is the slightly over 30-minute version of the Week in Geek.
Slightly, yes.
We had a 10-minute intro. I was watching.
Sure, yeah. And if you believe that, I've got a good chance to win tonight. Oh, by the way, quick update. Russell Wilson now has 16 fantasy points. We are 1 minute left in the second quarter. I'm telling you, do you believe in miracles? Do you believe in miracles? Because I'll need one, because I got a 1% chance of winning now, according to Yahoo.
I was going to say it's roughly the same number of points that Deebo Samuel had, I believe, before the half when I was pulling for him to put 60 up. So
exactly, but at least with a quarterback, you got a fighting chance at that. Wide receiver, that's like saying, you know what, the entire world's destruction hinges on whether or not I can dunk a basketball.
Yes.
Yeah. You like that a little bit better if it's at least someone who has functional knees and ankles still, Mm-hmm. That's kind of the difference for me. But thank you, sir, for kind of bringing all that together in the Week in Geek. Really appreciate that. Now we're going to get on to the heart of the matter, as Don Henley once said. And God, I hate myself for even quoting Don Henley tonight. But oh well.
Well, you've come a long way if that's who you're quoting.
Well, that is true. I have quoted worse, and I will again. We are going to talk a little bit about Ghostbusters Afterlife. I, of course, saw this. Did I see this the day before, like another one of those Thursdays when it opens on? I think I did. When it opens on Friday. Yeah, so I saw this opening weekend. You had to wait a few days, so you saw this the second week that it was out.
Wednesday of last week, yes.
And I believe that I think that I'm not spoiling a whole lot here when I say that we both enjoyed the flick. Would I be correct in that? Okay. So just a heads out ahead of this, we are not going to be careful with our spoilers or anything like that. So if you have not seen Ghostbusters Afterlife, you want to go watch that and then come back and listen to this, because we are not holding back anything. We're going to talk about it all, and don't blame us, and don't get all hateful with your keyboard and start, lashing out. But if you do, send those to Tim at freerangeidiocy.com.
How did I know that was coming?
And let him know exactly how you feel. Yes. So anyways, so some overall thoughts before we dive into some more of the details of this. What were your overall thoughts in this, sir? How did you feel about the flick as a whole?
I really enjoyed it. I thought it was a well put together story. Gosh, there's just so much to gush about. I love the pace of the story. I really liked how it wasn't a, hey, we're going to recreate building the business and getting out there and busting ghosts and doing all this stuff. It was just this sort of journey of his being Egon's family to kind of understand who he once was. And I just loved, I love throughout the movie, whenever they'd bring up his name or the farmer, whatever they would say about him. And everyone in the town's like, you mean the dirt farmer?
Yep.
It's like the same reaction from everyone. It was awesome.
Which is so fitting, because you could totally see Egon out there being so weird that people are just like, he's just bizarre. Like, Don't talk to him for too long, or he isn't going to want to talk to you for too long.
Right. And yeah, so I mean, everything was just, just around, how the townspeople reacted to him was spot on. I mean, I don't know how deep I want to go here, because there's a lot of points I wanted to kind of hit on, but I know one of the criticisms the movie is getting, I've seen some comparisons to like Force Awakens, where it's kind of recycling basically, some story elements from the first movie. But, I kind of felt like it was the right thing to do for this kind of story, because you don't want to be telling this kind of story about family and connectiveness and, loyalty and things like that, and also have to explain the mechanics of the villain and all the backstory and all of that. I think the fact that they went with something that like there was almost an acknowledgement, like, you all know how this story kind of goes, so you're going to see it play out kind of similar to the first one, and we don't have to spend a lot of time explaining it, but we can focus on the important stuff, which is really the relationships between the characters and how that comes together to kind of be the thing that thwarts the villain in the end. And I really liked how they did that. I thought it was just, some may disagree and think it's just kind of lazy storytelling, but again, because I think the thrust of the story was about family, I think it makes sense to use something that everyone is familiar with, because most people seeing this movie will have probably seen Ghostbusters 1. And, for the most part, not, of course, not everyone, but for the most part. And so there doesn't have to be a lot of getting into what is the keymaster, what is the gatekeeper, all of that had been gone over in the first movie. And so I just liked how that just kind of smoothly played out, and it was this great story about the power of family and the connectiveness there, and just his family kind of coming to an understanding of who he really was, and just really kind of creating that palpable sort of pain, his daughter really kind of articulating the neglect that she felt, not realizing that he was kind of about a greater purpose, and not understanding that, but having that moment at the end to kind of reconcile that. I thought was just kind of a really, it was deep for that franchise. The franchise is about guys fighting ghosts, you know what I mean? So, I mean, they get to this point where it's like, she goes to hug him at the end, and you're his ghost. And it was like a real moment, it's just like you kind of, you had to feel the emotion of that if you were really there and into it. And so I just thought they just did a fantastic job with the story and just the themes that they were trying to really emphasize and play out. And they leveraged elements of the first movie to kind of bring all of it together and really just tell a very heartwarming, kind of story at the end with a beloved character, Egon Spengler.
Yes. And to the point of that criticism, I think that when people start picking out stuff like that, I don't think they necessarily understand storytelling, or the fact that stories boil down to essentially the same however many structures. The reason why, you say, oh, well, episode 7 was the same as episode 4. Yep. You know why? Because it's the hero's journey. It's this certain type of story. And that certain type of story is the same story that gets retold hundreds of thousands of times in novels, in movies, in operas, whatever medium that you want to choose, this story is being told. Now, is it being told the identical way? No, but you boil it down and it's the same damn story. And there's also an idea of circular storytelling. Like, you come back to this thing and you realize oh man, they're repeating the same thing. Yes, because you know what? People are not learning and they're making some of the same mistakes. And there are variations, but you're seeing how this plays out, because things don't always repeat, but they rhyme.
Right.
And this, to me, this is not a repeat of the first story, but it rhymes with it.
Well, and one thing I'm curious to get your thoughts on this. Like one thing, as I was thinking about this and thinking about that comparison to like Force Awakens, and I'll probably get Jimmy Dice throwing something at me for saying this, but I almost think that what was done in Force Awakens was in a way more egregious, because, like I said, I feel like what they did in Ghostbusters was done to serve the greater story that was being told in that movie, whereas having a planet-killing planet, which was really kind of a retread of what we saw in A New Hope and what we saw in Return of the Jedi, it didn't really serve the greater purpose of that story. It was kind of leaning on a familiar device that we've seen a couple of times. And here, when Gozer appears and when the dogs are there and all that interaction is going on, it's just so like the word that popped in my head was efficient. It was just so efficient the way they did it. They didn't have to spend a lot of time explaining it. They were leaning on this concept from the first movie of Ivo Shandor and all of this stuff that he was doing to try to bring this demigod back, and revisiting that again and coming to this place where this podunk town where, oh, this is where he mined all of the metal that went into the building from the first movie, like tying it in a really, kind of smooth way. Whereas I just felt like in Force Awakens, it was just kind of, it is in a lot of ways a retread, not one for one, and Rey definitely has a very different journey than Luke. But I still felt like, what purpose does having the planet killing planet serve that story versus, oh, okay, they're fighting Gozer and the dogs. They know how to do this and they have to all come together to do it. And as a family defeat it. And I thought that served a greater purpose than maybe what we saw in episode 7.
So if you were to say...
Agree or disagree?
Disagree. Because here's the thing. And disagree in some of the points, not in all the points.
You get what I'm saying, though, right?
I do. But here's the thing. Like, it's not... what you're dealing with in Force Awakens as opposed to episode 4 and episode 6, you're dealing with an escalation of weaponry, right? The second Death Star was bigger than the first Death Star, right?
Mm-hmm.
So we don't just all of a sudden say, hey, this weapon worked. What happens to those weapons? They tend to get bigger, right? Like you build an atom bomb, then you build bigger atom bombs, then you build nuclear bombs, and then you keep going up from there. You built an aircraft carrier, you build a bigger aircraft carrier. Here's now this gigantic weapon that can annihilate multiple planets, one shot, without having to transport itself halfway across the galaxy to do it. It can just sit there and take out these planets from everywhere. Now, granted, yeah, there's a weakness in there, but of course you also can't necessarily kind of count on everything that happens there. But to me, it's circular in that it rhymes. Like, yes, of course someone's going to escalate the weaponry. Of course they're going to do this. Of course this and that. The thing is, in going back to saying, oh, well, you're just going back to the Gozer thing. Well, it's not like they it's not like they trapped Gozer. It's not like Gozer was necessarily destroyed. They just stopped what was happening. So to me, it's like that's a nice callback that, like you say, it's nice shorthand. Like, okay, we don't have to explain everything to you. We don't have to do like Ghostbusters 2, where we have to create a whole new bad guy and his whole backstory and this and that and the other. Here's a bad guy and here's an escalation of that. Perfect. So I disagree with your analysis of Star Wars, but I agree with what you're saying in terms of like it serves the purpose of the story and gives you a good way in. So yes, disagree and agree, because I like my cake and eat it too, because basically what the hell's the point of having cake unless you're going to eat it?
I know. Well, sorry, I've been babbling on. How about your overall thoughts, sir?
I think it's one of the best put together stories and movies that I've seen in a while, and I think it's a very fitting successor to the original Ghostbusters movies. I enjoyed Ghostbusters 2. I know there's a lot of people who don't like it. I liked it. Whatever, but this definitely fits in, and I think it's great. I think the last half hour of this, especially being of a certain age where you kind of grew up with Ghostbusters, and then you grew up with Ghostbusters 2 and the Ghostbusters animated series and all of that stuff. And you used to dress up as a Ghostbuster for, Halloween, all that stuff. Yeah. The last half hour of this movie is absolute bar none effing magic.
Mm-hmm.
It is just gorgeous. And it is what I was hoping we would get.
Yeah.
There was a bit of Kevin Smith on Fat Man Beyond, one of their more recent episodes, had a mild criticism. Of course, he gushed about the movie because that's what Kevin Smith does. Because Kev loves him some movies and just movies in general, and he very rarely has too much negative to say, unless it's about Bruce Willis. So I guess if there's a Bruce Willis movie, he's gonna bury that one. But for this, very, very effusive in his praise. But his one mild criticism was the fact that it was over 2 hours and it kind of sagged a little in the middle. I don't know. I think it slowed down a little bit. I think there's a difference between slowing down and sagging. But then again, I was so in the bag for this movie from the first teaser, I cannot be objective about it. I don't think that it needed a severe edit, like he's saying, to get it down to like an hour and a half. Not everything can be, two guys in a video and a convenience store. So 2 hours to me was fine. Overall, I was just incredibly impressed with the movie. I enjoyed it thoroughly. My daughter enjoyed it. There was enough callbacks to make it interesting. There was enough Easter eggs to make it fun for someone like me who's watched both of the first two movies multiple times. And there was enough new stuff to make it interesting, and some little points that were like, oh wow, and seeing like the different characters come back, and it's like, oh man, it's so good to see them. And the one thing I would have asked was, it would have been nice to have just gotten a Rick Moranis sighting.
Yes,
but yet I understand, like, the man is retired, and he is staying retired, and I can respect that. It would have been great for him to come out of retirement for like a half day.
Yeah.
Like, give me Dana Barrett at the end, or whatever. Like, have him knock on the door. Like, you don't even have to have him come in. Like, just have a voiceover like that. Just listen, Rick. Can you just hold the phone up and say this line? We'll send you a check, but we're going to process it and have it sound like you're coming through the door. It'll be great. Something like that. That would have been great. But that's the only thing I could have asked for. It was everything else I could have asked for. Love it. Absolutely loved it.
Mm-hmm. I have to ask, as a father to a father, last 15 minutes, a little dusty in the theater for you?
Oh, yeah.
Like, I mean, like, it wasn't even the fact that they brought, all throughout the movie, there's that element of Egon being there, like guiding his granddaughter, like, down to that bunker and showing her how to repair the proton pack and all that sort of stuff. What got me was his first appearance when she's taking a shot at Gozer, and then he appears next to her like a grandfather.
Oh yeah, and
holding
helps
her arm, guiding her. I'm just like, oh, you diabolical geniuses, you.
You're gonna make me cry right now. It was beautiful. It was beautiful. Actually, the moment before that, when his daughter was down in that secret bunker and saw all the photos and all the notes on her, like the one that just stood out to me was like, number of freckles seemed to have doubled and things like that. Like, because it was touching, but yet it was so Egon. Like, that is totally how Egon, he would be totally measuring like stool samples and everything else, like, with his kid, and not in a creepy way, but just because he's a meticulous science geek.
Right.
And that he would be like so attentive that it would probably drive the kid crazy. But she got it and realized, like, he wasn't there, but you could tell that he wanted to be there, that he was still so invested in her life and finding out as much about her as possible, and that started that whole thing. And then, as soon as he showed up, it was like, oh, come on.
Mm-hmm.
Come on, dude. I can't take it. But at the same time, like, they've got to do it, right? They've got to do it. And so when that moment happened, I was like, it was just like this release, like, oh yes, this is just what I was hoping for. Oh man, it was gorgeous.
And then the shot of him standing next to the three of them. I thought it was brilliant by Jason Reitman and not that there was a lot of time spent on this or a lot of depth to it, but I thought it was, just, and he would be the right director to do this, given his father directed the first one, that he kind of created or brought to light, there was this friction between Ray and Egon. Because Ray and Egon always seemed like they were like copacetic, just brothers from another mother sort of thing, And I thought it was really smart for him to kind of throw that curveball in where Ray, like it really took me by surprise when Phoebe calls him and he's just like, oh, you can burn in hell, and I'm just like,
and then Phoebe's like, he died last week.
It's like,
and you can tell, like, in that moment, like, because I always enjoyed, like, Ray. I always enjoyed Ray's character because he was he kind of seemed like he wanted to be the tough guy, but yet in his heart he knew, I'm not.
Right.
I know that I'm not, and thus that whole, according to the state of New York and the blah 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 blah, and like these big speeches, and then just dumbfounded, like, are you a god? And he's like, no. And then of course the call back in this movie was just like, oh, it's so great. And in the most Ray way possible. Like,
yes. Yeah.
He looks over at them and they're both just like, oh, come on.
you know how this goes.
Like, you can't tell me you forgot.
Yeah.
Like, what happened, right? I mean, That's a pretty. It's not like just something that happened last week. Like, oh, do you remember what happened on TV? No, we were there in the presence of like, all 80-foot marshmallow man, all that. Remember that? No, you don't. Okay, that's it. You go to the home, and but yeah, for Ray to bring that out, but then to immediately have that gut thing, like because he was venting and all that, but then immediately just that ultra humanity, like that, just. Oh man, that was rough, but also so gratifying. He's like, "There's Ray, there's Ray."
I just felt, and you already touched on it, but the ending was just phenomenal, and I really liked how they ended it because it really did, the movie did really end with that, after that final hug with his daughter, and you kind of you see his apparition kind of go up into the sky, going to the afterlife. That was it. It said for Harold, and then it kind of went into the credits. Oh
my gosh! As soon as that came up, that's again. It's one of those things where I was like, it was almost like in Endgame where they pan back and there's Tony's kid talking with Happy, and like, then the cheeseburger moment. Like I thought I'd made it. Yeah. I thought I'd made it, and then all of a sudden for Harold, I was like, right, man.
You're killing me, Smalls.
Oh man, yeah, that was great. Yeah. And of course, it was nice because that kind of ends that story. Yeah. But yet then you also got your little like Venkman Dana moment, which was awesome, which is such a great little moment. But then of course the post credit scene is now like the setup of like, okay, now what? And I love that. I love the fact that you kind of if you left as soon as the credits started rolling, it's a complete movie for you.
Yeah.
And then the mid credits scene is that bonus, and then the post credits is a true epilogue. And it was great. And so I feel like we're kind of heading into like casting characters here, because I think that's the next step.
Yeah.
And my bridge into that is, man, how awesome is it to see Winston Zeddemore go from I'll believe anything if there's a paycheck in it to being like this ultra successful dude who's got like the sharp suit. He's floating Ray's business. Yeah. He's buying the fire station at the end. It's just so awesome to be like, damn, you go, Winston. That's right. And of course, Venkman's off teaching marketing, which I'm like, right on. Yeah, that's he should have been there all the time. Really.
Which makes perfect sense for all the characters. Egon was the egghead. Ray was, like you said, Ray's the heart and soul and was kind of the philosopher of them all. Venkman was the sales. I mean, of the three of them, Venkman was the one who was kind of the oddball. I mean, he was really the salesman, right?
Oh, and like the sleaziest used car salesman too. Oh, like especially in the first Ghostbusters, like, you are a poor scientist.
That's right.
Like as some sort of hustle or dodge. I was like, yep. Yes. I mean, you can't help but nod along with that dude when he's kicking him out. Like, yes, yeah, you're right. You are right.
Indeed.
Yep. No, and that was great. And my other note for the cast and characters was really, man, McKenna Grace and Finn Wolfhard, which, number one, first of all, great freaking name for these kids. Like, dang. Oh my gosh. But McKenna Grace especially, like, such broad shoulders. Like, this entire movie rested on her character.
Oh, she was the standout, hands down.
She was amazing. Like Finn, he was there, and he did a great job with what he was doing. But man, this was like all about Phoebe. Yeah. And focused so much on her that, man, she did a great job in this flick. Just great.
Finn Wolfhard is also one of the leads in Stranger Things. And so, not that this role was a ripoff from that show, but it was very similar, similar setting to see him in kind of an oddball sort of show about paranormal kind of craziness going on. I really enjoyed, too, how between the two of them, there were those physical traits of Egon there. Like, you could see it in Finn's face. You could see it in McKenna's, hair and face as well. Like you could just tell they were like Egon's, grandkids and that sort of thing. And I thought that was really cool.
Yeah. And going back to the Stranger Things thing, another thing that I got out of the Fat Man Beyond episode really that didn't quite click with me is essentially this is like a 21st century Goonies. Like Jason Reitman managed to give us Goonies, which so many other directors and studios have tried to do. They've tried to have their new Goonies and all this, and all the kids go out and do that. And here it is. it's like Goonies Ghostbusters, because these kids are off kind of doing their thing. And it was so interesting because it was such a like 80s movie in terms of the kids just go off and do stuff. And the parents are never wondering where the hell they are, which is not a thing that happens now. But back in the 80s, you could do that. Like you could just disappear for the whole day. And the parents are like, thank God. Hey, do you know where little Johnny is? No. And it is gorgeous. It is exactly what I've been hoping for 3 days right now. To have that little rugrat out from under my nose. It just happens constantly in this movie. And the other thing of just like when they go around and shoot up the town and like kind of biggish things happen, but yet nothing really, there's no real immediate reaction.
Yeah.
Which is kind of a trait of 80s movies, was like something could happen and then it's almost like in Grand Theft Auto, whereas as long as you hid for a little while, then the cops stopped looking for you. You know, that sort of thing. Like you can get into this much trouble without the popo coming for you, you know, that sort of thing. That was like every 80s movies, you know? Yeah. Oh my gosh. Yeah, that was great too. But
well, and you know, it's funny you mentioned that, like the setting. Like I love the fact this wasn't in, you know, a metropolis city. I love it was based in a small rural town, you know, away from everything. It was such a departure from, and we had talked about this. You know, I was looking back, we did an episode, I think it was back in July, where we talked about the trailer. And you and I both really like the fact, and still, you know, after seeing the movie, think this was a great decision to completely keep it out of New York or any sort of major metropolitan area, and just put the story in a different setting and let it play out, you know, and just let it kind of do its thing. And I mentioned it earlier, I loved the fact that they brought, you know, this tie-in with this name that was dropped in the first movie of Ivo Shandor, and the fact that, you know, he apparently created this town and was really responsible for its existence and that sort of thing. I really didn't think, I mean, we'll get to nits in a little bit. I didn't think there was a necessity to have Ivo Shandor there, and I really felt that was kind of like my one little nit, is there was really no explanation, no exposition or anything around his presence at all. I mean, it was just like, okay, he's there in some sort of chamber. How is he being kept alive? Why is he being kept alive? You know, why is it when the spirits rise, he's coming back? You know, like we didn't understand any of that. Whereas we had a frame of reference for Gozer and, you know, the gatekeeper and the keymaster and so forth. So I just thought that was a little strange, but outside of that, I thought the setting was perfect. Loved Phoebe and Trevor and just the actress and actor who played them respectively, and just the heart that they brought to those characters, and really a lot of it, like you said, it rested on their shoulders to communicate that family connection and really bring that emotion, especially, you know, at the end. The one thing I'll say about Winston, love the end credit scene, love that they have the character who was kind of given an opportunity by these three knuckleheads to be the one that is kind of managing it and kind of maintaining it, and who was the most success, you know, really, like you said, was the most successful of the four of them, but in a way giving back to them. And I don't remember exactly what he said during his, you know, kind of back and forth with Janine, but it had that feel of, you know, these guys gave me a chance, and, you know, I want to respect what we did and kind of keep that going. You know, and I thought that was such a great, you know, he's not the heart and soul of the Ghostbusters, but it's a very, I'm trying to think of the word for it, but very noble pursuit. And I think, you know, you have in the notes, loyalty, you know, like there's a loyalty to the whole thing and to the four of them and stuff. And so I thought that was just really cool that they took his character and elevated it that way, as like he's kind of now the foundation that's kind of keeping that going moving forward. If there are future movies, or if there are, you know, expansion of Ghostbusters as a story, that he'll probably be big in terms of driving that. And so I think that's a really great call on their part to kind of have his character transform that way.
Yeah, no doubt. So next up on the outline here, you have you originally had plot and story, and I kind of changed it around to story versus fan service, because for me, I really felt like the reason this whole thing works for me is because Jason Reitman got this right. And the idea being, with a lot of you pretty much talk to anybody from Stephen King writing novels to screenwriters, the story is the boss. Story is king. And when you get into plot is tricky, because plot is kind of this manufactured thing. Like, what you really want is a story. No one's like, at least when I'm going for something, I'm like, ooh, I want a really interesting plot. No, I want a good story. Spin me a good yarn. and give me good characters who have things happen to them and who do things and that comes to some sort of big thing and takes me on a trip. I don't want like, okay, and then on page 30, you need to have this happen. And then on page 60, there needs to be the long night of the soul. And then here's the false loss. And here's the redemption and all this. And that happens on page 83. Don't give me all that. Like, that's plot. Story is like, here is this guy who gave up everything, including his kid, to go to try and save the world. Right. And knowing that no one's going to believe him and that he's going to just essentially have this existence. And then what happens to his kid afterwards, and then his grandkids, and then what happens when events conspire that kind of undoes what he had kind of set up.
Right.
You know, that's like, give me that story. Sure. But here's the thing, like, he kept the story in the driver's seat, but he still managed to give fans what they wanted, or quite a bit of what they wanted, at least. Now, the two things to keep in mind here, or the first thing that I keep in mind with fan service is, number one, fans are dumb. I wanted to let that hang there for a minute.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, Uncle Todd, 9:00 p.m. Central Time, November 29th, Monday. Go ahead.
So here's the thing, because, and I'm including myself in that, we don't know what we want until we see it, and then we think we know everything.
Right, right.
Who knew that they wanted Star Wars until they saw Star Wars?
Right.
People said, oh, well, a great sci-fi movie would be great. Oh, I want a big epic movie or anything like that. But nobody said, oh, I want a story about and nail that entire thing. No, because they hadn't seen it. So now you get Star Wars. And then you get Empire Strikes Back. You get Return of the Jedi. Now, all of a sudden, every smart-ass fan thinks that they know best. And then they crap all over the new stuff because, oh, well, I don't want that as a fan. Blah, blah, blah. Like, you didn't even know you wanted this until it was shown to you. But now, because it's been shown to you, now you keep saying there's this thing of, oh, I want more of what I like, but I want it different. So fans could be this dumb kind of fickleness of like, I want new, but not that kind of new. I want the kind of new that I'm familiar with. Well, that's not new. That's old.
Right.
No. I want it new, though. Okay, whatever. So you got to keep that in mind at all times. So when people start getting a little antsy about, oh, well, they didn't do this, they didn't do this, they didn't do this. You know what? It ain't your call, because the last time I checked, you didn't make Ghostbusters. You didn't make Star Trek. You didn't make Star Wars. There is surprisingly a very low percentage, actually not surprisingly, of fans who then go on to do their own thing, because it's really freaking hard. And it's just a lot easier for fans to sit there and kvetch over the internet. So there's my take on that. Like, if fans get upset because there's not enough fan service, is because they don't understand what they necessarily want until they get it.
Right. And to your point, though, I feel like it was balanced. I mean, and maybe I have a different definition of fan service than what you're talking about. But I mean, even the little things like the music, like the fact that they wove in elements of the original score from the first movie into it, you know, that just that kind of background music as the story is playing out just gave it a texture and a feel. Like, if that wasn't there, then something would be lacking. You know what I mean?
Totally.
And so I loved how they brought in all of those little elements from the first movie into it as a way of kind of enhancing it. Now, would someone who's 16 or 13 who watched the movie kind of look at it the same way we are? Probably not. But I feel like including those little details and kind of delivering, you know, like we talked about, just this story that was kind of leaning on some mechanics that were kind of defined in another, you know, kind of in an earlier story, I thought allowed, you know, as you put it in our outline, you know, allowed Reitman to keep the story in the driver's seat. I 100% think that's really by design and what they were trying to go for, because by doing that, you can focus on the important aspects of what you're trying to tell in that story, as opposed to getting bogged down in trying to explain away everything that's going on.
Yes. And the second point I was going to make about that whole thing is that fans should get some of what they want. Like, you ought to give people what they want. You know, like Kevin Smith had once said, like, once you start doing sequels, you are in the fan service business, whether you like it or not, because people want some of what they got. It's finding that balance. like you were saying,
Right.
and having the story still be able to be the story and leading the charge, and the fan service not necessarily in the back seat, but definitely not in the driver's seat.
Yep.
And I think that he did a great job of doing that, as opposed to Star Wars Episode 9, which just that, because there wasn't, and I'm coming around more and more to what you and Jimmy Dice had said about there not being a firm hand on the wheel in terms of that entire trilogy. I think it could have been done better. I think if JJ had been a little bit more mindful, or if someone had if there had been a better kind of plan, or someone had a bit more authority directly to say, this is how this whole thing is going to play out. Or if they hadn't just gotten nervous about the reaction to Episode 8. I don't know which it is. I'll probably never know. However, in Episode 9, they veered so hard into fan service that it completely fracked the story that they had done in Episodes 7 and 8, which I still to this day say, if you had just not tried to course correct every single frickin' thing from Episode 8 and just played out the story as it was supposed to be, wow, probably would have been better. But instead, we're going to get into this fan service mode, and we're going to try and give everyone the Star Wars on the left moment and everything else. And guess what? You leave with an empty experience.
Right.
And in this case, like, you got enough of the fan service stuff. Like, you got enough of the little Easter eggs. You got enough of the little things like, and this kind of setting up the 4 kids as each one relates to a Ghostbuster, to the older Ghostbusters, and all of those things. Seeing like Egon's, spore and mold collection, as a quick thing, and all of that, like, all of that was great. But if it's not set in a compelling story, and if you aren't adhering to that story and always going back to, okay, here's a cool moment, but here's the story, it doesn't matter. You can have the greatest fan service in the world. The movie is going to stink, or it's not going to be, it's at least not going to achieve the potential that it could have.
Right. And, I said balance, I'll say restraint now, but I really appreciate the fact that they wove in the original cast toward the end, the way that they did. I thought that was masterful, the way they did that, because you could have easily been tempted to kind of make it about them and, bring them in halfway through and bog it down with them coming back and all this stuff. And it was just the right amount. You know what I mean?
Yes.
Like even though it was at the very end and it was a little bit, it was just the right amount, and it provided the right amount of emotion. Like, their whole return was meant to bring that emotion, that feel from the original, but again, to kind of bring the old and the new generation together, as well as bring kind of in a way the 4 of them back together, where you had, Ray apologizing, you had Winston. When Winston said, "I miss you, my friend," I mean, that was another one of those where he's like, "Oh, it's getting dusty in here," sort of thing.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, you could just tell that there was just this depth to their relationship, and I'm sure it had something to do with the 4 of them being good friends through the making of the first movie and then the second. So I feel like they showed the right amount of restraint. Like, let his family be the focus for 3/4 of the movie, and that last quarter, let's bring it all together and knock out the home run, and 100% nailed it.
Yeah, and keep in mind, it's not like they brought the original guys back and they saved the day. They can't save the day. Like, they weren't able to do it. Why? Because they're missing Egon. They needed all 4 of them.
Right.
And the kids couldn't do it because they can't do it all on their own.
Right.
So you need to bring everyone together. And I thought that was a beautiful moment, because it allowed you to show, like, the old and the new coming together, especially with Egon there, like, helping his granddaughter and all of that coming together to show, like, it is about family. It is about teamwork. It is about loyalty. It is about friendship and all of that. And the responsibility that you have, that the older Ghostbusters have, the responsibility of, it's our friend's family. We got to go.
Right.
Like, this is what we got to do. And I thought all of that just came together so beautifully. Like you said, they let the focus be where it needed to be. The story, they came in when it would work best for the story. To me, the ultimate fan service thing would be, like you say, to bring the Ghostbusters in, or no, here's the ultimate fan service thing. Okay. Here's the ultimate fan service thing. So Ghostbusters 2 famously started out with what was like 6 years later.
Yeah.
Or 5 years, whatever. And that was like the opening card. You want the ultimate fan service? Opening card, 32 years later. And you show, like, Ray investigating what happened to Egon. You could even have, like, the same beginning of him running around and all that. And then you immediately go from there to Ray investigating. and you flash between Ray and Winston talking about this stuff, and maybe you even have, you know, Venkman come in once or twice or whatever, but you play out the simultaneous tracks of Egon's family and the Ghostbusters in New York. And then it all comes together, like you say, but it would have taken away so much because you don't live with this family. That's the ultimate that's the fan service version of this movie, is that the Ghostbusters are woven throughout the entire movie, instead of like, it takes you until halfway through the movie before you even get a mention of Ray.
Yeah.
You know, and any of that. So I think that it was done exactly the way it should have been.
I agree. 100%.
Oh, and an update right now. We are in the third quarter and Russell Wilson has 20 points, which means I'm still screwed. But hey.
Now he's got to go ×4 on that.
Yeah.
My gosh,
yeah.
we're roughly having the same, you know, conversation we had a couple episodes ago when I was really banking on Debo to post 60 points.
Yeah, I'm feeling dirtier by the moment. Anyways,
at least he hasn't thrown an int yet.
Thanks for jinxing me on that. I appreciate it. It's
well,
going to start taking points off the board.
It benefits my team if he doesn't do well.
So a ton of Easter eggs in this. And first of all, I mean, it's kind of remarkable. We haven't mentioned the ageless wonder of Paul Rudd yet. Because even though he grew a beard and he's showing some gray hair, I'm like, I totally think that they actually grayed his hair. Like, I don't believe that he still looks like he's, I don't know, like what, 29, 30. Mm-hmm. But did you notice, because this has been pointed out before, of course, when he's in the Wally World in Oklahoma, which seems like a very clean Walmart for what I picture the middle of nowhere to be. Like, I picture the middle of nowhere Walmart to be a little bit more dingier than that. But anyways, you know, you got to put your best foot forward for the product placement. But of course, it's been pointed out, he stands in front of the Baskin Robbins freezer at Walmart, which famously he worked at Baskin Robbins in Ant-Man before getting canned. However, did you notice that he grabs the same flavor ice cream? It's the same as the shake that he got when he got fired in Ant-Man. And he makes a mention of pointing it out. I can't remember what it is at this moment. But yeah, I thought it was like a nice Easter egg, and then it was an Easter egg nested inside that Easter egg, because it was such a little throwaway line. It was great. I did appreciate like the gunner's seat.
Oh, that was awesome.
Which was just downright cool, but was also cool because apparently that was I thought I remembered this from like the cartoon. Like, that was a thing in the real Ghostbusters cartoon, and is now getting carried into Ecto-1 for this flick, which I thought was kind of cool. What are some of the ones that you enjoyed in this?
Sorry, I was lowering my desk. You'll have to edit this out. I thought you were going to go on for a little bit longer.
In the background here, which is a sound of old man Tim. Like, I gotta sit down. My bunions are killing me.
I've been standing for near 2 hours, for crying out loud.
Yeah, you've been standing for 2 hours drinking Uncle Nearest, so you're getting a little wobbly. Like,
actually, it was the 101 proof Maker's Mark special there that I got a couple of weeks ago.
Oh, you fancy lad, you.
Oh, yeah.
All right.
Other Easter eggs. I mean, I talked about one with the music, you know, kind of bringing back the old, you know, just some of the elements of the soundtrack of the first movie to kind of bring back, I think, some of that nostalgia. What else? The gunner seats. Love the remote control trap. I thought that was a very cool point there. We've talked a lot about Ivo Shandor. I honestly don't know why they cast anyone for that. I mean,
they did it for the sight gag. They did it for the sight gag of him just getting ripped apart after like one line. And
Oscar
you know who that
winner
was?
J.K. Simmons.
Yes. And you know what? God bless him for that. You know, he was like, can I get a part in this movie? Just anything. Like it's like when Daniel Craig was in one of the Star Wars movies as a stormtrooper. You know, He was like giddy when he did that. Like, they probably had to do 3 takes that because he kept on giggling.
Yes.
Like, Daniel, you got to stop giggling. I'm sorry. This is just so cool. I'm James Bond and a stormtrooper. I would do it. Like, to me, here's the thing. Like, this is why I probably shouldn't ever be a famous person, you know, beyond the podcasting mogul that I am.
Oh,
because I would want to spend all my time doing goofy crap like that. I just want to do cameos. I want to do weird stuff and just like satisfy all my little geek cravings for things like that. That would be the entire purpose for me becoming famous. And ain't nobody going to let me become famous just for that.
Other than that, I don't know that I identified any other.
You had the little the vegetable strainer with all the attachments on it that Tully wore.
Yes.
And then you had, of course, Ray's goggles on podcast. What else was
I love
there?
how he took a picture with them and knew right away to take the picture that popped out on the side and shake it.
Yes.
It's like, how do you even know to do that? Like, that hasn't existed in 20 years.
No, actually, Polaroids have been back around. Like, it's a thing. They're out there.
Oh,
I don't know why.
Sheriff who put him in the pokey, when she asked for her phone call, and he's like, "Who are you going to call?"
That was nice. That was nice.
I don't know if I have any other ones.
Yeah, I didn't go. I mean, I noticed a lot when I was watching it. Like, there was a few little things, like you'd see an item and things like that. To me, it was nice that only a few of them really stood out enough to me to really remember. But I know that once I get this on DVD, because I will be buying this, who am I kidding? I'm buying this on Blu-ray. And once I watch it another 5 or 10 times, I will be able to go chapter and verse on all of the Easter eggs. But right now, oh man, yeah, just a lot of wonderful stuff happening. Going back, I mean, then you have the mid-credit scene with Dana quizzing Venkman on the cards, which was great. And then at the end of course, the containment unit blinking red, which as we've heard before, like, that's not good,
Right.
Yeah, like the energy is as the Twinkie would be the size of Manhattan, something like that. That's a big Twinkie, as Winston said. Yes. Oh man, yeah. So a lot of great little kind of stuff that really didn't jump out, but was very warm and welcoming.
It was.
Yeah,
it was.
So do we even have to do a buy or sell on this? I mean,
it feels like an empty exercise, because I think
it is a foregone conclusion. We've already bought.
After gushing for almost 50 minutes about this movie, I'm going to sell.
It's just how much we're going to buy.
Yeah.
It's to me, it reminds me of so if you've ever watched Hearts of Darkness, which is the making of Apocalypse Now. And at one point, Francis Coppola is talking about getting fog machines, and he wants more fog machines. And at one point, he's like, "Can I buy the ones that I've already bought? Good, I'll give them to you as a gift at the wrap party." And just that sort of thing. Like, can I already buy what I've already bought of this movie? Yes. Okay, I'll buy some more then. That's my only question. Can I buy what I've already bought about this movie? Yes. Okay. Good. Yeah, I was so in on this movie from the teaser, and having seen it, even more in. I want to go see it again. I really do want to see it again in the theaters.
I am curious for someone who's from this younger generation, who doesn't have a family, who either may not have seen the first movie, or it's been a while since they've seen the first movie. I also wonder how it would resonate with them. You know what I mean? Because you and I are talking as huge fans of the franchise. Have watched, I can't even wager a guess as to how many times I watched the first Ghostbusters. It was like one of my favorite movies through my preteen, teen years, just watching it over and over. I loved it when Ghostbusters 2 came out. I was all over that. So I'm just curious if it resonates the same, because it almost feels like in some ways the story is geared a little bit more toward folks like us, it
totally is.
I don't know that the younger generation, it would kind of resonate the same way. But nonetheless, I would say, as we've talked about, just that theme of family, I think is hopefully something that speaks to a lot of people, because I think it's a very heartwarming tale. So well done to Mr. Reitman on that.
Yeah, I mean, I can't say that I don't think it'll resonate the same way, but I think it can resonate. It's not going to be the same as it is for a couple of, mid-40s guys who grew up with this movie. But my daughter, who is, I think, may have seen Ghostbusters twice.
Mm-hmm.
And I think I don't even know if she's watched Ghostbusters 2 yet. I don't know if we got around to that one. But I mean, she's 14, and we were watching this, and she kept on, like, to the point where I had to basically tell her, like, please just let me watch the movie. We can point out all the Easter eggs when we're on the couch, but I really want to watch this right now. Because she was like, that's the thing. That. And she was like, she knew the stuff that was happening. Like, she was pointing them out to me. And I'm like, okay, please. I just want to watch this movie, though. When we can pause this, I'm all over this with you. Really, kid. But I just, please, just give me this moment to, like, see this on the big screen. So, I mean, it resonated for her, and she enjoyed the flick a lot.
That's good.
Now, granted, I mean, she's also my kid, so the geek is strong with her.
Yes.
So I don't know, but then again, I don't know how many people are just walking into the theater cold on this movie. I really don't. Because Ghostbusters really is one of those things that I feel like it's permeated society to a certain degree that even a healthy dose of people who, kids now have seen something of it or heard something of those movies, So I don't know how cold anyone's going into this movie, but it worked for her.
Excellent.
And another thing.
Well, sir, what do you have for And Another Thing this week?
So I'm going to go back to a prior And Another Thing, long time ago.
Your main guy.
Long time ago. I had talked about a podcast I am quite fond of to listen to called How I Built This, hosted by Guy Raz. Well, he now has another podcast. I think he's trying to compete with us as moguls. But
uh-oh.
What's the uh-oh for?
Patrick?
Oh, geez. How did I know?
Patrick, I want you to get me NPR on the phone.
Oh, jeez.
Yeah, I want to talk to this Guy Raz guy. No, his name isn't Guy Raz Guy. He's a guy who's named Guy Raz. No, it's not Guy Raz. His name is Guy Raz. No, he doesn't own a garage. Guy, you know what? Go back down and fix the heat. I'm starting to get chills up here. I don't care if you got electrocuted. Well, I mean, I do care, but I kind of don't care. Well, don't touch that then. Don't touch that either. I don't know what you can touch. Just go fix the heat. Please. Wow. I said please. And don't go to McDonald's again. Remember? Okay. Sorry.
Well,
I'm telling you, dude.
I feel like I got to start over after that little skit.
I'm telling you, it's a wonder. It's a good thing we don't drink during the podcast anymore, or at least I don't drink during the podcast anymore.
I
wisdom from the top.
I had a cheat night.
Okay, did you do like The Rock and you had banana pancakes with peanut butter smeared on them along with your Maker's Mark?
No, I did not. I simply had a Maker's Mark neat.
Well. So anyways, wisdom from the top with Guy Raz.
Yes. So Guy Raz invites you to listen as he talks to leadership experts. So it's not, it sounds awfully familiar to what How I Built This is. How I Built This is very much entrepreneur stories of how businesses that grew into these billion-dollar businesses came to be. And the journey of the creator from the very beginning to the point where either they sold or they're still in charge of it. This one he's talking with CEOs, executives who are leading some of the world's biggest brands today, and talking with them and hearing their accounts of the crises they've gone through, failures they've experienced, turnarounds, triumph, as they reveal their secrets, kind of that led them to the top. And so the one that I've listened to up to this point was the very first episode with the CEO of Lego, Jorgen Vig Nudstorp. And it was a very interesting listen because, again, he is not the one that created Lego. He kind of came into Lego as a consultant and kind of grew his way into this executive role that he's in now. But it was very interesting to hear him tell the story of how, when he got kind of a handle on the business and what Lego was doing, how the way they were structured, they were destined to fail. Anytime they would try to scale up, they would lose even more money. And it was all about his story of how they had to restructure and kind of steer the ship in a different direction to get them to be profitable, which was really shocking to me because my kids were very little in the early 2000s all the way up, through the 2010s. Legos were everywhere. I never would have thought they were ever in trouble, but no, during the 2000s, they were on the brink, and we're navigating some very choppy waters. And so it was a very, very interesting listen. And so they have others on brands such as Peloton, Gatorade, PepsiCo, and other companies, that where he interviews these leaders. And so if you're interested in these stories, I'm always, during the workday, I like to listen to them just to kind of hear their stories and draw some inspiration from things they've learned or problems they've overcome. And so if you're into that, I would highly recommend this podcast to you. It is a great listen. Guy Raz is just a master host and a master storyteller. Really, these shows, both this and How I Built This, just feel like you're sitting down and listening to a guy kind of tell a story of these individuals, and just the way he, kind of weaves the question and where he takes them and stuff is just a master class in how to do that. So Wisdom from the Top by Guy Raz. Do check it out and give it a listen. You will not be disappointed. So, sir, what is your in another thing?
And just remember, that is on the man they call Tim guarantee. If you are not satisfied with that podcast that he just recommended, you send those thoughts to Tim at freerangeidiocy.com.
Dang it.
And you let him know, and he'll give you a full refund. A full refund.
Well, 0 times 0 is 0.
True. For me, I actually am going to a little bit of recommendation for something I haven't quite finished yet, but I'm working on it. You might have heard that there's this little documentary on this little band very obscure band called the Beatles on Disney Plus. Have you heard of this thing?
Who that?
Yeah, exactly. So let me just say this is a very, very interesting documentary. It's during it's kind of the hidden, not hidden, but this footage has been around for a long time that nobody had really done anything with. So something like 50 hours worth of footage of when the Beatles were making Let It Be. And they kind of started out with this idea of recording all of the music for the album live and all this. And this is kind of the making of all of that, and how plans change and how things change and how the band went through that entire process. Very interesting. Very, very interesting. It's so interesting to basically just sit there and watch 4 people who are this influential in terms of modern pop music sit around and just be a band. Especially for someone like me who sat in band rehearsals before, trying to write music, trying to work on songs. I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm just sitting in on a band rehearsal. And there's so many there's so many times I'm like, yep, that sounds about like how most bands are. You start making stupid jokes and goofing around, and you play someone else's songs, and sometimes you play them really badly just because it seems like a fun thing to do. Then of course you have the infighting, and of course someone gets ticked off. And I was watching like the part of the episode when the part of, I think it's the second part of the documentary, and George Harrison quits the Beatles.
Oh, wow.
And I'm sitting there watching with my mom, and I was like, well, it's not really a band until somebody either threatens or does quit in the middle of a rehearsal. Like, there's always that thing of like, of just getting ticked off with people and stuff like that. I'm like, oh yeah, it is just a band, even though it's the Beatles with capital.
Take my ball home.
Exactly. And it's so interesting. Now, the one complaint I do have, and this is totally to do with my own level of fandom with the Beatles, is this documentary, which is in 3 parts, is about 8 hours long.
Oh, geez. Wow.
The first 2 parts are 3 hours long each. The final part is like 2 hours, 15 minutes.
Holy moly.
So you're over 8 hours. Now, I looked this up because I was curious about it today. The core Beatles discography, like their main albums, not including compilations and all this stuff, like their original works basically add up to 10 hours worth of music.
Wow.
So you could listen to the entire Beatles catalog in 10 hours, or you can watch this movie in 8 1/4.
And see George quit.
It seems a little long. Then you realize, oh, Peter Jackson was involved. Of course it's going to be really freaking long.
Does Frodo pop in there?
That might break things up.
Do they, Gandalf?
Although the documentary, the director of the documentary, who's a figure in the entire thing, it does he is annoying enough to be a hobbit. But
jeez.
I don't know. Hobbits aren't even that annoying. I don't even know what. But it feels like it drags in places because there is a lot of minutia. There's a lot of stuff going on and a lot of discussions and all that. And if you're like a hardcore Beatles nerd, I know that this is fantastic because I put this out on Facebook just to see if the other people had another reaction. And I just kind of said I felt like it dragged, and like these episodes could have been like 2 and like an hour and a half instead of like 3 and 2. And got a response from a couple people who were like, yeah, totally. It does feel like it drags. I feel like I'm just sitting in on someone else's band rehearsal that I can't chime in on. And then the other part of it being people who are like, no, I am such a Beatles nerd that I would watch all 50 hours of footage just because I would want to see this. And I'm like, okay, fair enough. Like, I get it. Like, I've never been that hardcore of a Beatles nerd. So sure enough. Okay. It is really great for different parts. My two favorite parts are one, watching Paul McCartney pull the song Get Back basically out of thin air as they're waiting for John Lennon to show up. And he just starts fooling around, and you see him get like 60% of the song waiting around for John Lennon to show up. Jeez. And it's remarkable. It's just, it is. It's like he's just pulling the music right out of the air. And it's amazing.
I just had a quick question. So, because I've heard this on the radio, these commercials about it and stuff. And I was just curious. So do you ever get the sense that they're putting on an act? Because I've always wondered about, when the cameras are rolling, are you really seeing what these folks are doing, or does it really feel like you're just watching a band?
The fact is, I mean, when you're on camera, or like right now when we're on microphone, you know that you're being recorded, that something's happening, and there's a certain difference in who you are on mic or on camera than who you normally are. Just because it's really hard to forget that you're on camera, especially when you're not dealing with like hidden cameras and things like that. Like when you have gigantic cameras moving all around you, it's really hard to not notice that. It really is. So I think, there's a little bit of that, but I don't think it's so bad. I think if anything, Paul might be the most guilty of that. I think with Ringo, certainly, I think it's mostly he's just like yucking it up. It's almost like you're seeing some of the goofiness that was in the Beatles movies before that,
Yeah.
I don't really get that feeling. I really don't.
Interesting.
Another favorite moment is at one point they're talking about set designs for this live TV event that they were going to do. And as they're going around and hemming and hawing and arguing about these set designs, Paul McCartney's just in the background playing like this kind of beginning stage version of Let It Be.
Oh, wow.
And you just realize, like, dude, he's playing this iconic song in the background and ain't nobody paying attention to him because they're all arguing about like what the set should be and this and that and moving around lights and all this. And he's just back there. And I'm like, oh my gosh, like he's back there like creating musical genius. And you guys are just like, yeah, whatever. It's just such a great kind of like contrast. Yeah. So, I mean, I highly recommend it. I've yet to work my way all the way through it because, unfortunately, got other stuff to do, like record this podcast. So I'll eventually finish it. But if you are at all interested in making music, or especially the Beatles, it's definitely worth a watch. It's very interesting, even though it might be a little bit long for those who are not diehard Beatle maniacs. It's still well worth at least one watch.
Are you accusing me of taking you away from watching this documentary? Is that what I'm hearing?
Yeah, basically. Yeah. I'm glad that point came across loud and clear.
Jeez.
And on that note, once again, folks,
maybe
it's
cold
time.
in HQ. It's cold over here now too. Good Lord.
Well, good, because I just checked the thermostat in here. It was 67 when I came in. We're now down to 65. We're creeping downwards. We're creeping downwards. Patrick apparently is not having any success. Once again, at least I haven't heard any screaming, so I don't think I'm going to have to pull him out of any heating units, but,
Is he setting up a small fire in the...
I've stopped asking questions. If that's how I go, that's how I go. I probably had it coming.
Oh, dear.
So, once again, folks, it's time for us to kind of round things up, to pull up our tent stakes and take this show wherever it is that we take it when we're not here. But thank you to all the members of the Free Range Idiocy congregation for once again gathering and reading from the holy scriptures of idiocy and once again going on this journey that we like to call the Idiocy. We thank you so much for your support, your listening, your subscribing. It's all wonderful. But you know what? If you have made it this far and you have not subscribed, well, first of all, thank you for bearing with us. And you know what? Have a drink on us. You deserve it. Second of all, The hell's wrong with you for not subscribing? Get going on that. Go to freerangeidiocy.com and subscribe there. See all of our episodes. You can also find us on fine podcast purveyors of all types. We are on Apple Podcasts. We are on Spotify. We are on iHeartRadio. We are on Google Podcasts. A bunch of others. Ask for us by name, as the kids say, and maybe we'll be there. You can also follow us on the social medias if you want a little extra credit in the Free Range Idiocy MLM. We're not quite we're not Scientology. There's no aliens, but you know what? Tim needs to, he just needs an ego boost. That's what it is.
I am an upstream manager, ladies and gentlemen.
He comes across as very humble in this podcast, but oh my gosh, you wouldn't believe the crap he tries to pull in pre-production.
Show me the money.
If you help him out by boosting some of our social media numbers, he will appreciate it so much. So you can find us on the Twitters, we are on the Facebooks, we are on the Instagrams. All of those are at Free Range Idiocy, and you'll find us. If you have any questions, thoughts, concerns, complaints especially, Tim loves complaints. Loves it. Send all those to tim@freerangeidiocy.com, and he will get back to you forthwith, if not sooner. And now, we come to that wonderful time of the show when I finally stop flapping my gums and we get a hallelujah from the congregation. But first, before we do that, it is once again time to ask that all-important question. It is the second most important question that humanity has ever asked. No, it is not. Who did that? And it is certainly not the most important question. That, of course, is what is hip? The second most important question is, the hell did we learn?
We have learned the following, my friend.
Good.
Uncle Todd and the man they call Tim are on a win streak of sorts, or are kind of limping toward the playoffs now. So Uncle Todd, latest update is on the losing end, I believe, of his matchup.
I knew you were going to bring that up.
Well,
I knew it.
Well, I have something to bring up on my side. So Russell Wilson not exactly putting up the 80 points necessary for a complete comeback. Man they call Tim is in the driver's seat on his. However, it has just been updated that Deebo Samuel is now on the disabled list for a couple weeks with a groin injury. So I am now down one of my key wide receivers going into the final couple of weeks of the regular season.
Oh, hang on a second. I need just to ask a quick question here.
Yeah.
Does anybody give a crap about that? Anybody? No. Oh, so sorry. No one here gives a crap about any of that.
I think a few people do. So I'm going to keep going. Mainly, this is all to say it's going to be an interesting final couple of weeks of the regular season before we get to the playoffs. Hopefully, the man they call Tim will be up to full capacity for the final week, where it'll be Idiot Bowl 2 with the man not the man they call Todd, the Uncle Todd. So we will see what happens there. Uncle Todd and the man they call Tim, we have learned, mostly done with WWE at this point. We're pretty much there. Bring on the AEW. Please, because there's just...
Bring on Vince's head in a jar, and that's when I'll kick in back on that.
And I'll just simply say, bring on AEW. They've been putting out a quality product. Do check them out on TNT and soon to be TBS. And then finally, as we've been discussing, the heart of the matter, as Uncle Todd put it, Ghostbusters Afterlife, phenomenal movie, just great story, just a wonderful homage to a very good movie from the 1980s and a great franchise that has permeated our culture, and heartwarming tale. Do check it out. I think if you've come this far, you've understood that we're both a strong buy on this one. And typically we do this, but I do want to call this out. We've had a 30 or so downloads over the last week on Podbean, which is a bit up for us. It doesn't sound like much, but it is a bit up for us.
Guy Raz, watch out. We're coming for you.
We are. We're
coming for you.
Coming full steam ahead. Especially want to call out our episode 80 shot up. Our Eternals Real and Jabroni picks shot up for some reason. I think we have some folks who are curious about this Real and Jabroni thing. And so, as we originally feared, we were afraid we were going to chase people away. Not happening. So, thank you for the downloads, and buckle up, folks, because the next couple episodes we're going to bring some more Real and Jabroni your way. A few more bottles of bourbon will be dispensed, and there will be weeping and gnashing of teeth. With all that being said, thank you once again, and be safe, be healthy, be kind, be good to one another. And as we like to say, for no other good reason other than it's just polite, please hit the lights on the way out.
You're such a disappointing pair. I prayed so hard for you. Get out. And don't come back until you've redeemed yourselves.
Patrick. Didn't you get the heat working? I heard you clanking around down there. Where's the tools? You dropped them, but can't you pick them up? Your light went out. Okay, well,
did he try to fashion his own proton pack in honor of our episode?
Why are you limping like that?
Gosh.
Okay, yeah, you set the socket down. And then you tripped and oh dear God, you fell how?
What happened?
I think I'm gonna take Patrick to the emergency room.
Oh dear.
I'll just say there's a socket extraction
Good Lord.
that I'm not willing to perform.
Oh gosh. All righty then.
Patrick, get your coat.
Uncle Todd's going to have a spirited evening tonight, ladies and gentlemen.
No, don't. Actually, you know what? Don't bend over. I'll get it, okay?
Oh, jeez. Oh, my gosh.
Now get the hell out of here!